This week on the Rockstar Radicals podcast. I met Rodney Shurelds in a very tough season in my life. That season had a complex emotional bent for reasons you'll discover on this show. Living in Central Texas with his family, Rodney received a terrifying medical diagnosis that didn't just change his life, but obviously those around him as well. In the following year, Rodney stepped closer to death and lost so much of what made him typically human. As time went by, things accelerated quickly, and Rodney was placed on a donor receipt list just in case a miracle happened. In January of 2020, a miracle did happen. The problem is, another family had to lose a loved one for Rodney to live. And this is where our story begins. Please join us for this emotional and frank conversation as we break down what it means to receive life from another, the survivor guilt that comes from it, and the power of redemption through the family that lost their son so Rodney might live. This is my conversation with Rodney Shurelds on the Rockstar Radicals podcast. I wasn't really sure how much your story had what I expected, meaning I didn't think that your story was maybe outside of the norm. And it wasn't until I heard it through your own Three Brothers podcast from maybe about a year ago that I realized what you really did and what really happened to you, which is way more intense than the guy who, things went wrong for. I mean, things really, really went wrong for you quickly.
Yeah.
So let's start sort of with the basics, Rodney. You're in Killeen, Texas, correct?
Yes, that's where I live, Killeen, Texas. This is kind of where I was born and raised, I would say, quote unquote. Was born here, parents, were in the military and things like that. So we moved around a little bit, grew up, started school in Germany,
Wow.
Things like that. And then once I got to almost at the end of elementary school, we made our way back here, me and my mother. She had gotten a divorce right then. So we kind of came back here, and that's where I finished school and, ended up starting my own family here. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So pretty simple. I mean, your story is sadly common in the sense of going through familial changes, breakups, splits. But you're close to both your parents.
Yes. Yes.
Now, I know most people are going to say, what's the point of even having Rodney on the show? You know what I mean? So this is going to be a weep fest. I'm pretty darn sure of it. So let's actually just jump to what happened to you that caused this chain reaction of events so we can lead to the big kaboom, which is how you and I are connected.
Right, exactly. Okay. Well, maybe about, I would say we're in 2021 now. So I would say 2016. I would say I was working in Austin at the time. So people that are familiar with this area, it's about 45 minutes to an hour away from here. So I was just going back and forth to work. I just wasn't feeling right, wasn't feeling myself. And I'm a person that would normally not get sick at all. But I was just feeling bad for, days on end, couldn't figure out what was wrong and things like that.
Right.
So, ended up going into the doctor, and then finding out that I was diabetic, didn't know it, had high blood pressure, didn't know it, and when I say I didn't know it, I didn't have any outside symptoms. So I was just kind of just living life kind of carefree and things like that, which is why now that I'm on the other side of everything, I'm such an advocate for everything else, as far as health is concerned, making sure you're getting regular checkups and things like that. But we'll get back to that a little bit later. But like I said, going forward, after getting diagnosed, it kind of took me for a whirlwind. I wasn't really prepared for that. Kind of at such a young age, I would say I wasn't prepared for the diagnosis. So I
How
was
old were
living.
you?
I was what, maybe 30. I'm 37 now, so maybe about 32.
Okay.
Around that age, I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't mentally prepared to take on everything that was coming forward, because, like I said, every day I woke up, I normally felt fine. Nothing was wrong or anything like that. So to kind of, just move the story along a little bit later, a little while longer, my I didn't manage it as well as I should have in things like that. And so about a year later, just my body just began to swell. And I mean, like, swell like nobody's business. And I didn't know it was
Yeah.
wrong, what was wrong or anything like that. And I had never really, encountered or anybody that, well, I knew somebody that had kidney disease personally in my life, but it never had affected them in that manner. So I didn't know about the swelling and anything like that. So I was just kind of just going through the motions, like, and Rob, and I was raised Christian. So I was just like, I was just going to pray, and, God was going to do it for me. That was
Sure,
kind
he's
of
gonna
that
fix
was,
it. That's
yeah,
what Christians think.
yeah, exactly.
He's
That
all
was
gonna.
that.
It's all good. I'm good with Jesus. He's gonna
Exactly.
fix it.
Exactly. And that's kind of, how I was raised, that, when we go through things, we take it to God, and, his will be done, but, we pray that he fixes it. So that's kind of how it happened, how the snowball kind of started. I was just, every day I was just waking up, and when I would go to sleep, I would be okay. My body would go down and everything like that. But the next morning, as soon as my feet hit the ground, about five minutes after that, you could tell I looked like the Elephant Man almost. My legs were swollen, my stomach was swollen, my face was swollen, and everything like that. And in that, and Rob, when I say I went through that process, because I knew something was wrong, but, like, I was in denial, and I felt that, like I said, just prayer was just going to fix everything. So I
Right.
went through that process for almost a year of having kidney disease, not being diagnosed with kidney disease, and just living life like the best way I could. Even though I was in pain, I was fatigued, everything like that, from carrying so much excess fluid around. I was just, trying to live the best as I could. You know what I'm saying? So, and the kind of the tipping point um, uh, of that is when we went to California for my wife's little brother's high school graduation. So
Okay.
in the meantime, I'm still, carrying around all this fluid, everything like that, swollen, in pain, but yet trying to press on like a good husband, good father, and just make sure, I'm still working and trying to take care of my family and everything like that. So when we go, we have a few days in between the graduation and everything like that. We ended up going to Santa Monica Pier one day. And when I tell you, this was the absolute worst day of my life, and it still is. We went to Santa Monica Pier, and anybody knows that's been in California or somewhere around the beach, it's a ton of walking,
Right.
and that's
Very
all we
common.
did all day. And me, I'm 180 pounds now, and I was 300 then because of
Oh.
all of the excess fluid. So
Oh
I'm
my.
walking around the beach, and I look like I said, swollen. I look like the Marshmallow Man on Ghostbusters. That's
Wow.
that's kind of just a physical. I want to put people in the mindset of what I actually look like. So that day, I ended up wearing some shoes I shouldn't have wore. They weren't made for walking or anything like that, and I ended up hurting my foot, but I didn't recognize that I hurt my foot until we got back to Texas a few days later. And I was getting ready to take a shower, I believe the night after we came back, and I noticed a huge blister on the bottom of my foot, and everything like that. So ended up going to the emergency room that night because it really looked bad. Didn't know what was wrong or anything like that, but the emergency room was like a 3-hour wait. So we decided to just make a same day appointment for the next morning and things like that. So did that. And my doctor told me it was infected and I needed to see wound care like immediately.
Wow.
And she was like, well, I'm going to put a referral in to go see wound care. And she put the referral in, wound care never called. So in the meantime, within the next few weeks, I'm calling every day like, hey, I need to get in to see somebody. This is getting bad. It's getting bad. It's getting bad. So in that time, it got bad, and ended up, because of the diabetes and everything like that, the high blood pressure, my foot ended up, the corner of my foot, which meaning my two smallest toes, ended up getting gangrene. So that happened.
Good gravy.
So that happened, and ended up having to have my lower leg amputated and everything like that.
What?
Yeah. So that's a part of the whole story, man.
So wait a minute. Now I'm not making fun of this at all.
Yeah, you don't have to.
No, well, I mean, I was going to give you a little Lieutenant Dan comment.
I make jokes about it all the time. My friends.
Okay, but you ended up losing like half of your leg.
Yeah, my lower left leg. Yeah, so I have a prosthetic, but most people can't notice now that
Yeah.
I wear sneakers every day. So
I've seen pictures of you. There's that one photo of you, with that shirt on, right? And you've got your sneakers on. Everything looks normal if you want to put quotes around it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you lost your toes. That ramped up. You lost your leg.
Right.
And then what?
And all the while, I'm still, my body's still swollen and everything like that. I don't know, what's going on. So I finally, ended up going to the doctor, and being diagnosed with with stage 5 kidney disease. The doctors are like, you're soon going to have to go on dialysis. So at this time, I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm praying for myself. I'm not really letting anybody know. I'm not letting anybody know. I'm not letting my wife know. I'm not letting, my family know what's going on because I'm scared. I don't want to make them scared,
Yeah.
I'm carrying all of this weight on my back by myself, which I don't need to, but, through foolishly I am, So, one day it kind of, like I said, one day, my wife is just like, I'm tired of seeing you like this. I'm going to the doctor with you, So she goes to the doctor with me. She hears the news that I already know. And she's just like, she's just so disappointed that, that I didn't share that information with her. And, I feel horrible now, because I just always think of, if the shoe was on the other foot, quote unquote, that, how would I feel if she didn't let me in on something that was so dramatic and so, life altering. So in the midst of that, I'm working jobs and everything like that, trying to, make it happen and everything. So, I ended up going on dialysis. Like I said, I'm 35 years old at this time. One of the youngest people at the dialysis clinic, because a lot of people just think, when you have kidney disease, it's for older people, and things like that, and it's true. Like a lot of older people are on dialysis, but kidney disease affects every age group. There are people that are born with kidney disease, develop it when they're toddlers, teenagers, anything like that. But, still being one of the youngest people that actually, is going to the clinic. And Rob, I'll tell you this, man. Anybody that been to dialysis, they know it's really either two sides to the story. It's either you're really angry that you're there, or you're happy to be alive. It's really no medium. And the hardest battle that I had to face when going through dialysis was mentally. And it was because a lot of people were just so negative in there. And I'm trying to keep hope alive, that I can get a kidney transplant and everything like that. I'm trying. And it's one of the hardest things that you'll ever have to do, that battle of the mind. Like, when you and I went to dialysis first thing in the morning. So I hear it, as soon as I wake up, it's like, I hear death, and I want to give up. And if you've never been in dialysis, you don't know the toll and the tax that it takes on your body, mentally and physically. You know what I'm saying? So I understand why people are so angry. I understand why people want to give up, but I'm just not that person. I don't want to give up.
Yeah.
My faith wouldn't let me give up. The hope, and the prayers that my friends and my family provided to me at that time wouldn't let me give up. So it was so hard. But kind of moving forward, I did the dialysis thing for a little bit over 2 years, man, and it. I wasn't on the transplant list at first. I always wanted to be on the transplant list, but I wasn't on the list at first because I was just kind of being lazy about getting on it, which is so crazy. But I made up my mind one day, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And I got listed for transplant August 21st of 2019, and I actually got transplanted January 13th of 2020, which is a little bit over 5 months. And
Wow.
if anybody knows anything about the transplant list, it's a major organ, so they know that list is tremendous because it's a pool of people nationwide that have been waiting for years.
Right.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say that 5 months is actually, I think, a very short time. Isn't that correct?
Very, very short. That's like, in the realm, you would say it's the equivalent of maybe like 10 seconds. If you just wanted to put a time on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, got listed on August 21st, got transplanted January 13th, and that's kind of where our stories meet. But in the meantime, before I got the transplant and everything like that, I was in search for a living donor. I had made a video and put it on Facebook, Instagram. I made a specific Instagram page, just for the kidney, just to try to reach out to people, just say, hey, I'm in need, I'm looking for a kidney and everything like that. And then my miracle happened, the day of January 12th. And I'll kind of go into that story in just a second of how it happened. And I want you to jump in and kind of let the story intermingle. So I'll stop there, and you can kind of share your portion of the story, and then we'll kind of merge it all together.
Okay. So for those who are listening to the show or watching this on streaming services, long story short is my brother Mike, he lost his wife. She had a stroke in August of 2017, and that sent him into a tailspin, as it would most people when you lose a loved one. And he had just felt so down and crushed and defeated, and it lasted such a long time that by the early parts of May of 2019, he decided he was going to go on a sort of a vision quest, and he sold all of his stuff in his storage units. He took his lease and tore it up. He packed everything in his brand new car, including a very large dog and 2 cats, and decided to drive around the country and just spend some time sort of reacquainting himself with himself, right? Trying to find out who he was. And surprisingly, that led him here to Washington State. He did not tell us. He literally just one day showed up, and it was an interesting surprise, to say the least. My brother and I'm the eldest, and we have never been close in the sense of who we were. We're very, very different. I mean, if there was ever proof that I was fathered by a mailman or something, that would be it. Because I'm the anomaly in the family. I'm very much the dark horse, where my brother was this very very clearly a Jones, very nice and kind and smart and hard charging, and really wanted to have a significant life. He wasn't eccentric. He was very, very much a blue collar, hard working man. And I've always enjoyed that about him, but we clashed like crazy. So in the summer of 2019, my brother came to visit our family, as I had mentioned, very much a surprise. And when he showed up, my mom put together sort of a mini family reunion. And also in celebration of my daughter's 28th birthday or something like that at the time. And so we all get together at a park. We played Frisbee. We ate food. We just talked. And I will tell you that those hours were the moments where I realized I actually really enjoy my brother. I didn't realize how much I enjoyed him. I struggled with him because we were so different. And I always sort of felt guilty because Mike is a very direct and loving person. And he always had a sort of a favoritism for me, but I didn't reciprocate. I was very much the aloof, distant, I'm struggling with who you are, and that collision. It's like putting milk and oil in a cup. Yeah. The oil floats to the top, and that was Mike. I was the milk, and Mike was always sitting on top. But that coagulation was a huge struggle for both of us. He was much better at it than me. He could handle it. I would get upset and I would exhibit it out loud. So. Yeah. Long story short, we had that day and it was really special. And then for the next couple of months, he kept saying, hey, let's go spend some time together. Let's go to the other side of the state and go visit our childhood stomping grounds, all these things. But those plans never came together. And then one day, right around Thanksgiving of 2019, he decided he was going to head back home. And so we talked on the phone, and he took off and made his way down the coast and then over into Texas. And then the early part of December, he decided he was going to take a stop in El Paso. And I had never been to El Paso. I didn't know what was the draw, but Mike liked the idea of maybe even moving there. I mean, you have to remember, he had really no roots anymore. Right. He had a business in Florida that was being run by one of his trusted friends and partners, actually a couple of them, wonderful guys. And they were doing what they needed to do to make ends meet. So he could just kind of, again, continue to figure his soul out, so to speak. Right. And so he decided to stay in El Paso for about a month. And then because he had one, not character defect, but he had one thing that he didn't do. He didn't take care of himself very well. He was born with severe asthma. I mean, to the point where he really shouldn't have survived childhood. It was really, really distressing to see him have asthmatic attacks. And he had a few as an adult, but nothing of really any significant consequence until about 2 years prior. And then he had a fairly big one. He was hospitalized and he came out and he's fine. And like I said, he's doing his trip. So he's in Texas and he says, I don't like my teeth. I'm going to go down to Mexico and I'm going to get my teeth pulled out so I can get dentures, so I can have a beautiful smile. Yeah. Now, he wasn't this narcissist at all, but he really wanted that for himself. And I have to say, I was really surprised he was going to do that. But right before Christmas, he goes down to Juarez, which I can't even imagine doing the Mexico thing, let alone he went to freaking Juarez, which we all know is like the beheading capital of the world.
Right.
You know, hey, white boy, you don't fit here, you know. And he had all of his teeth extracted, all of them. Wow. And dude, for $500, he got all of his teeth extracted, medication, and dentures for $500. In America, this would be $50,000, maybe or more. So he does that. Well, he had on Christmas of 2019, he had he had developed a sinus infection that was pretty significant, and he spent Christmas Day in the hospital, and he sent me a text asking how we were doing. We didn't know he was in the hospital. We didn't know. And he said, "Hey, I'm down here missing you guys. Wish I was there. I hope you have a beautiful, wonderful day." Sent me this really lovely text just about being proud of me, which was really interesting in hindsight. And then a couple days later, he started to have more issues with these infections, and that led to a actual severe sinus infection that he wasn't even aware that he had. He had because he's an asthmatic, and here's the thing: he's partly guilty for his struggles. He was a smoker. He was allergic to cats, and he had 2 of them.
Wow.
He lived in a humid environment. I mean, he made his home in Tampa Bay, Florida, for the last 25 years. Oh. And so he kind of pushed back against all the things that he should have done to take care of himself. So, you know, so I think that was part of the consideration for El Paso too. Still really hot, but a very dry, arid environment, you know. Yeah. So he gets these infections, and things are kind of starting to become a struggle. And one thing leads to another, and he just started having a hard time. That's maybe the best way to put it. Yeah. On the morning of January 5th at 2 a.m., I got a phone call from my mother who said, somebody just called my number, and they say that Mike's in an ambulance. And I didn't know what this meant. I didn't, you know, I just thought maybe it was my mother overreacting. Mm-hmm. And that was distressing, of course. But, you know, like all these things happen, you say, well, it's no big deal. I mean, stuff happens all the time. People get in car accidents, and, you know, it's really no big deal. But we get that call, and then I just figured, I told my wife, let's go back to bed. We'll wake up in the morning. I'll make calls to the hospital and see what's going on. Mm-hmm. So the next morning, just to help my mom out, I called this hospital that I believed Mike might be at. And I checked in with the ICU, and they said, no, we don't have a Mike Jones here. And so I was like, well, okay. So I called all the hospitals in El Paso, and none of them had a Mike Jones. And I waited a day because I hadn't heard from Mike. Mom didn't know anything. And nobody said he was, there was nobody at a hospital. Right. So I don't know. I'm waiting for him to call me back. And then the very next day, I thought, I'm going to call these hospitals again. Well, the first one I called, I said, look, somebody from this number called and said, you have my brother. And they said, oh, no, we have a John Doe. And yeah, and we didn't know. So I said, well, and I gave a description of him, and they said, yeah, that we think that's him. And so I talked to a doctor, and they told us what had happened. And so what had occurred is he had a severe asthma attack. It just decided to happen. But how it occurred, Rodney, was because he had this sinus infection, and this is a word to the wise for everybody listening. If you get a sinus infection, please get it taken care of, because the sinus infection leads to other infections. And in his case, the sinus infection sort of grew from his nose up into his brain, and it actually affected the front lobe of his brain, which actually caused his body to go into seizure.
Mm.
So my brother had a fake asthma attack, if you will, which choked him out.
Mm.
So that death, because he died. Now, here's the thing. He didn't die, but he went into cardiac arrest. And that was, I mean, you get told all the time, hey, people come out of cardiac arrest, it's no big deal. And he was, they had done chest compressions on him, and they had revived him, and he was in the ICU at this hospital. And they put him on all the appropriate meds. But it turns out that they were testing and testing and testing, hoping that he would come out of this, that he would wake up, and it would be, okay.
Right.
And 2 days later, I got a call from the doctor, whomever, that said, I am sorry to tell you this, but after extensive testing, it appears your brother is brain dead. Mm. And there wasn't anything I could do. So I flew down to Texas knowing I had to manage his affairs. And fortunately for me, I say this fortunately, because I did a one-way trip down there so I could meet with the doctors. And then I knew if Mike survived, maybe I could stay with him for a while, or I could bring him back. But that wasn't to be. I went down, I took care of all of his affairs, and he had a car still sitting in the hotel. He had paid through Friday. So that all worked out. And then I picked up his pets and kind of got that all going, and went to the hospital and signed his death certificate and donated his body for organ transplant, which is how you and I connected. Because ladies and gentlemen, Rodney has my brother's kidney in his body, and Rodney's alive because Rodney should not be.
Right.
Because of my brother. He had literally a situation that was life or death, and my brother's death became the catalyst to Rodney's life. And as awful as that was, losing my brother, I now have a new brother from another mother. and he's young, and he's going to outlive me, and I'm so happy about that. So you want to continue the story from there?
Sure. I mean, and that's
Excellent.
amazing. Listen, even learning, some of the stuff I didn't know, just by talking to you, learning, some of the ins and outs of Mike and everything like that. It just makes the story so much more amazing. So how the day, keep in mind, Rob, tell them one more time what day officially he passed.
Well, let me get out of this solo layout here. My brother passed away officially on January 9th.
January 9th. Okay.
Yeah.
So just to put this in perspective, I didn't receive the transplant till January 13th, which is so uncommon.
Yeah, I don't know.
So uncommon, from 9 to 13. So where that day kind of takes place is I'll start with that Sunday because it transitioned into Monday morning when I actually got the transplant. I'll start on Sunday. We went to church. We went to church like normal that Sunday morning, and every Sunday our pastor, Pastor Mark, he would say we have prayer cards, throughout the seats, and if you have a specific prayer request, you put the prayer requests, on the card, and turn it into the offering basket and everything like that.
Right.
This specific Sunday, and I never, because I always feel selfish sometimes, just praying for myself at times, which I know I shouldn't, but I kind of do. So the kidney request thing, I never actually placed it on a prayer card. I didn't. That day, my wife did. She didn't say anything to me. She didn't tell me. What she did tell me after she had already written the prayer card down, she just kind of nudged me and, kind of showed me. And I'm like, okay, awesome.
Right.
Appreciate. I'm like, thank you. So she throws it, she tosses it in the offering bucket. We go throughout service, go home, and everything like that. And everything, and that night, we were actually sitting there watching a football game. We both love football. I love the 49ers. They just happened to be playing the Seahawks that night, which is ironic. You guys live in Washington. So,
I'm sorry.
They were playing the Seahawks and playing the 49ers that night.
Yeah.
The 49ers won, by the way.
Man, I'm telling you, but that's a great rivalry. But let's not go there, because I think now, by the way, I will just interject that I think now the Seahawks are doomed. I think they're going to trade Russell. I think it's all over. I think we never had a dynasty anyway, but it's all over. They got to
years of glory that you did.
It's all messed up. It's all messed up. So anyway, keep going.
But that night we put the game on mute because we just started talking, and we were just conversing about life and everything like that, and we happened to get on the subject of forgiveness. And just we were talking about things in our past, parents, everything like that, and we had a really, really in-depth conversation just about forgiveness. And it really just, helped free us in a lot of areas. And it was just me and her just casually talking and things like that. And so we decided to go to, after we had a great conversation, we decided to go to bed. That night, we just happened to sleep in two different rooms because we do that sometimes just because of our work schedules. I was getting them for dialysis and things like that. So we're sleeping in two separate rooms. That night, and I normally sleep with my phone on vibrate, just because I don't want any alarms, Facebook messages going off, when I'm asleep or anything like that. And I'm normally the light sleeper.
I understand that, buddy.
But yeah, between the two of us, I normally hear my phone, or anything like that, even if it just buzzed. So that night, around, I want to say, I think 12:16, I missed the call from the hospital. I initially missed the call from the hospital. But she, on the other side of the house, she comes running in the room like, it's the hospital. They're talking about a transplant. And rewind the story, back in November of 2019 again, I had gotten a call just letting me know that they potentially had a match for me. And they were like, well, you're second on the list, so we'll call you back if this is the one for you. And so I went to work that morning. I was excited, I was very excited, but maybe about halfway into my shift at work at like 11 or 12 o'clock, the hospital called me and was like, hey, the person that was first on the list, they got the kidney. So, better luck next time, kind of like almost that conversation. And I was so disappointed, because being excited, and thinking you're getting a transplant, I called, every lottie-dottie and everybody to tell them, it's getting ready to happen. So when it didn't happen, I was so disappointed. So this time I kind of made myself like, I'm not going to get excited, because I've been through it before. I don't want the letdown again. So when she brought me the phone, she's on level 10 and I'm just like at 0. And I'm just calmly talking to the transplant coordinator. He's like, hey, we think we got a kidney coming from Dallas for you. How soon can you be ready? And I just tell them, hey, I can be ready in 5 minutes. I just got to take a shower and I can head to the hospital, which is like 25 minutes away.
Right.
So they're like, okay, well, we got to run a couple more tests and we'll call you back. Hang up the phone. Again, my wife is like going bananas. She's like, you get ready to get a kidney. You'll get ready to get a kidney. And I'm just like, I'm somber. I'm not saying anything just because I don't want the letdown again. So an hour goes by, Another 30 minutes goes by. We don't hear anything. I've already taken a shower. I've already packed my bag. I had in a faith move, I had a bag packed that's been in my car for months, just preparing for the call. So I took a shower. Had my bag packed already, just got it out the car just to make sure everything was good in there. I tell her like, well, I'm not going to stay up and be restless all night because I have to go to work in the morning. So I'm like, I'm going to just lay down. I'll turn my phone on just to make sure I can hear it. So we lay down, we start watching Netflix for about half an hour, 45 minutes. And it's like, okay, we're tired of waiting. Just go back to sleep. If they call, they call. If they don't, they don't. Like Rob, we're getting sleepy again because we've been up for about 2.5 hours now. As soon as we shut our eyes, we hear the phone ring. And the hospital's like, it's a go. Like, let's go. So come to find out, like you said, your brother's in El Paso. And I don't even think you know this part yet. Your brother's in El Paso. The kidney somehow goes to Dallas. And the kidney gets a police escort to Temple, Texas. When I say yes, they get on the road, which is from Dallas to Temple is maybe about 2.5 hours.
Heroes parade, man.
Right. So they rushed the kidney to Temple. Like I said, police escort. I don't know who the policemen were. I don't know if they were state troopers, local police, whatever. They rushed the kidney all the way down to Temple. So I get to the hospital and just to kind of throw this tidbit in there, just to show you how awesome God is and how he worked out everything. And it was so orchestrated by God, with everything, from Mike to myself, everything played a role in this one particular day.
Yeah.
That Friday before I left work, I had never filled out FMLA paperwork in my life because I go to work, I go to dialysis, never. I never thought about it. But something in my spirit, in which I know is the Holy Spirit, told me to fill out FMLA paperwork that week prior. And it got approved Friday. I go to surgery Monday. Just to show you how good God is, and how he had it orchestrated. So I get to the hospital maybe about almost 4:00 in the morning. I have to go through the emergency room entrance because the hospital's not open yet, of course. So the only thing that is open is the emergency room. The police escort me up to the transplant floor, and I get there about 4:30, and by 6:15, I'm wheeled down to surgery, and I wake up 5 hours later with a brand new body part, and it's amazing because, like I said, our stories merge that way. But I get the new kidney, and all they tell me is that it's a 51-year-old healthy man. That's all the hospital ever tell me. So I go throughout the week of recovery. I go home that Friday. You have to go through a small class before they release you and sign your discharge papers. So they give me this binder, and in the binder it has I don't even know what we call it. I forgot, but the information to potentially contact your donor's family. So I say, okay, that's something I definitely want to do. I don't know who and where they come from or anything like that, but I definitely want to say thank you because I know they lost somebody. So, and I struggle with it, and I say that lightly, but I really did struggle with it. And I'm like, the part I struggle with is that this family lost someone so that I could, I can continue living and be with my family.
Yeah.
So it was sort of like a survivor's remorse. I was like, would they want to hear from me? Did he die tragically? Did he die, of natural causes? Every question is running through my head at this point. But like, I just wanted to say thank you. So I wrote the letter, and in faith, I took it back and sent everything off. And I was like, man, I hope they can receive it. I hope they're happy to hear from me. I hope they're not angry with me and everything like that as I'm, mailing the letter off, excuse me. And I just say, God, I put it in your hands because within the transplant community, it's if you have a deceased donor, it's very, very uncommon, or very, very common not to get an answer, or maybe it just another thank you back,
Yeah.
and and that's it. And a lot of people, that I know within the kidney community, they're like, oh, I've never heard from my donor. I don't know who they are, or anything like that. And I just didn't want that to be my story. I didn't mind it because, like I said, my life is enhanced because of it. But I didn't want to be like, oh, I got it now, and good riddance to the person that, gave it to me. I didn't want that to be the case. Right. So I wrote the letter in faith, like I said. So I didn't hear anything back, those first couple weeks, because I know it has to go through the hospital before it actually gets to the family. And things like that, which I didn't know at the time I filled it out. I'm thinking I'm sending it directly to the family. So, and then I just, one day, I'm at work, and this bald-headed white guy pops up in my Facebook Messenger. It says, he just says, hey, I think you're, and no. The first thing that happened was you liked a couple of posts and liked a couple of pictures, and I'm like, who is this Rob Jones guy? Yeah. He's liking all my kidney page, and you like the picture of me actually in the hospital getting the transplant that morning. And I'm like, well, maybe he's just a part of the kidney community. That's how he found it.
The kidney community.
Yeah. So
I know what you mean. Yeah.
So I'm like, maybe he just, maybe he's just some guy, random guy who, likes the picture or likes the post.
Yeah.
Then I get the infamous Facebook message like, hey, I think you're my brother's kidney recipient. And I'm like, okay. And Rob, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but it was so weird. It was just like, okay, like, how do you know? Like, because, the letter is like, almost anonymous as far as who's sending it.
They redact it.
Yeah. So I'm like, do you really know? And then I was like, well, you asked a couple of questions, and I'm like, yeah. And so, like, after about the third question, I was like, okay,
yeah,
I see what you're doing.
Well, let me tell you how I did it. So, I didn't know. So let me say a few things first about Southwest Transplant Alliance, STA. Mm-hmm. Their team. Look, I've never experienced this before. I've never lost a loved one like this. I've never had to sort of point the direction of what do you want to, of his body, what do you want to donate, and I'm so glad I was able to do it over my mom. Having to put my mom through that, it was already hard enough to lose a son,
right?
And her youngest, you know what I mean, and she had just lost my dad, and you know what I mean. This is all this pain. So I'm so glad I was able to be there. But STA was an incredible, very loving and kind group of individuals who really, really went above and beyond to make sure that we were, obviously as comfortable as we could be, and that it would serve the most. And with a few exceptions, we didn't donate everything, but almost everything.
Right.
What I just didn't want, the remains of Mike, and I know this sounds silly, but there's this weird mental thing that happens in your head where you can imagine them. I know this sounds awful. There's no other way to put it. You can imagine them being cut up.
Yeah.
And you can imagine them not only being cut up, but they're still in their head. So they can talk about being brain dead, but they keep the body alive. Mm-hmm. It's like freaking Nazi science, man. I mean, I know that sounds absurd and extreme, but they do. That's how, or else they wouldn't have had the kidneys don't last outside the body 4 days. They exercised the kidney that morning, flew it to Dallas, and then ambulanced it to you. Yes. And that's how it is. And so there's a weird psychology that goes with it, but I was just so happy to be a part of it because I knew Mike would be so proud. I think I've shared this with you. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to make certain individuals uncomfortable, but Mike would love that you're a man of color.
Yeah.
He would love that. And there's a lot of reasons by it, but he would definitely love that. How do I want to tell the rest of this story? I'm sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there for a moment. But STA was this incredible group of people. They really, really made things as easy as they could.
Yes.
So kind. I can't share some of the stuff they did for us because I think it went against protocol. I'm the guy who will ask a lot. Like, and how I got to you, Rodney, was we received a package, sort of a thank you box, if you will, from the Transplant Alliance with a medal and all these things, and how they're going to put them on the wall of life at the hospital, as a donation, and all of these other things. And then this is really hard for me to talk about, but a couple days later, I got your letter, and there was actually two. I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was two cards.
Yeah, there was one card that was like the STA card, and then there was a card that you had personally probably purchased or something like that and sent it. And STA wisely redacts things, and I have a feeling you must have signed your last name.
Yep.
And they don't. That's not okay, right? Yeah. They want to be the middleman to control. If there's going to be a communication, they want to be a middleman to control it. So they had redacted your name. Well, when I received the card, I looked at it and I thought, okay, Rodney, that name is fairly common, but then your wife's name wasn't so common. And then your daughter's name wasn't so common.
Yeah.
And so I took a quarter and I scraped off the whiteout and I ruined it. I couldn't read it.
Yeah.
And even though I could have gone through STA and eventually hopefully connected with you, I was so afraid I was not going to be able to reach you that I just felt like I had to do it myself. Mm-hmm. And so I just went on Google and I typed all three of your names together.
Oh.
And yeah. And because your wife and your daughter have fairly uncommon names, the spellings, that it gave me one option, only one option, and it was your Facebook page.
Wow. See, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I went around all the legalities to get straight to you, and I actually didn't tell anyone because I didn't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be banned from future, connection with other families. We only heard from one other family, and there was no way to track it. And it was a very old man. He had received Mike's other kidney. Oh, okay. And all I know is he was 78.
Wow.
Yeah, which you would kind of almost think, I know this sounds awful, but you would kind of think like, let's give it to a younger guy. I mean, I thought it was kind of strange.
Yeah.
But there just wasn't any other connections to it. And I wanted you to read this. I don't know if you see this, Rodney, but I don't know who the Facebook user is. I don't know why it's not connecting the name, but it says, "This is an incredible live stream. I'm an organ donor also and want my family to know where my organ, eyes, etc. go. I'm writing my future recipients a letter."
Oh, wow.
That is wonderful. Thank you, whoever you are. I'm sorry that I don't see your name down there.
And it'll help. It'll help the recipient too if you do that. So
I really believe. I think to go back to what you were saying, Rodney. I think there's survivor guilt. There's massive survivor guilt for me because I am 2 years my brother's senior. I should have gone first.
Yeah.
But something I want to share to everybody listening, and to you, if I hadn't shared this before, is right before I left. So I had come down Wednesday. I did all the donation paperwork Wednesday. They called his time of death on Thursday afternoon. Mm-hmm. I stayed at the hospital for about 2 more hours and then went back to the hotel to pack. But before I left, I was talking to one of the nurses who had been in the ICU for, I believe he said 35 years.
Oh, wow.
So he was in his early 60s. And he said to me, and this is the very last conversation I had. He said, are you the brother? And I said, yes. And he said, how old was he? And I said, I'm going to get emotional again. I said 51. And he said, wow, that's perfect. Yeah, he did. And I for a second I was offended.
Yeah.
And I think he's a lot like me. He's just a, straight out, hey man,
Yeah.
trust me on this. You know what I mean? It's good. But he said, that's perfect. And I'll tell you why. He said, because I've been in here over 30 years and everybody does everything they can, understandably, to keep their family member as alive as long as possible. But what they don't understand is they're spending money, they're wasting resources, and they're keeping this. It's a fruitless endeavor. These people are dead. They're going to stay dead. They're never coming back. And the one that does come out of it has such heavy brain damage that they wished he would have died. Mm. And then the man said, tell me about your brother. And so it was a godsend. He was very lovely. And I told him all the things. He said, wow, he lived a full life. And he just smiled at me. And I realized he's right. 51 is young. And especially because I'm 54, that seems so unfair. But his life to the tilt, right? All 51 years when he really shouldn't have made it out of grade school with his asthma. Yeah. Is such a blessing that we had him for all that period of time. And to be very frank, when he came up that summer previous, it was our way of sort of connecting and making amends from 35 years of distance. Right. And we were able to sort of end on a beautiful, beautiful, graceful note. And the best part is God gave me the authority and the right to pass my brother off. Mm. So a friend of mine, his name is Dave Dayton. I talked about this recently in another podcast, but when he died, just the day before he went into surgery, he had a heart valve surgery and he died on the operating table. He said, I think it's really important that the people who live, they need to understand that they need to carry on for those that haven't. In other words, they need to live forward for all those that didn't get to continue. Right. And so I look at you, Rodney, and we can joke about the whole brother from another mother thing, and we can, but not only are we bonded by my brother's kidney that runs strongly and beautifully inside of you, but we've been given a gift to continue for others, to spread that message, to spread Mike's message, to spread love, to live full. Right. And I'm not talking about like some crazy movie, where everything's hardcore and all we're doing is skydiving and bungee jumping. But but why not? Right. And so I'm not trying to edit here, but I did want you to know that this is gorgeous to me, and I love it. And by the way, look who just popped up. Oh my goodness.
My mom.
Yeah. So for those who aren't watching this and will listen to this later, I'm glad I caught this live stream because now I know the whole story. Thank you, Rob Jones. This is Rodney's mom. Hi, Gwendolyn. So we are blessed, my brother. I mean, This has really been an incredible time. So before we end, what's next for you? I mean, you have your life in front of you.
Yes.
You have I hate the term fake leg. How do you get around? I mean, do you have an aluminum leg now? What's your?
Well, it's a prosthetic.
Okay. Is it kind of weirdly cool? Like, I mean, I have literally no idea. So I'm going to ask the stupid, uncomfortable question.
You can. I don't mind at all. I mean, my nieces and nephews all call it my robot leg. So
Gotcha.
kind
That's
of
awesome.
it's kind of like a little RoboCop thing. I play with my nieces and nephews, and they all enjoy it. And and if they get in trouble, I'll tell them I'll take it off and whoop them with it and all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah, that's
yeah, man.
fantastic.
Yeah, so I definitely thank you for the opportunity to share. Thank you for the opportunity to finally merge these stories
Yeah.
together, which is awesome. And I can't wait to be able to listen to it back and share this podcast with others, so they can check it out. And what's next is always uh, being a voice for this generation, the next generation, to let them know to men, women, boys, girls, always get yourself checked. If you don't, if you don't feel right, if something's not right, if your body's telling you something is wrong, I'm an advocate for going to the doctor. Just make sure you get a yearly checkup, yearly physicals if needed. Women get, breast cancer screenings, anything. I'm just an advocate for just making sure, that if something is right, if something's not feeling right, make sure you can get checked out just so you can be as preventative as you can, and things like that. So, and what's next is I'm trying to take the story and translate it into a book,
Wow.
Short story, movie kind of scenes. I'm thinking of starting a YouTube channel just to encourage other kidney recipient transplant patients. So I got a lot of things coming within the next few months that I'm excited about. So, and you'll be a part of it as well to help kind of merge these stories together as well. So when I need you, I just ask that you text me back and call me back, which I know you will, to make sure we can get everything straight and help Mike live on. And every time I go to the doctor, I just came from the doctor. Matter of fact, I told you right before I was at a doctor's appointment, and my doctor's just like, "You look great," and they're just like so surprised. They just say, "You look so good," Every time I post a picture or anything, like the people that knew, the story and the process, and the toll that dialysis took on me, and everything, all the nurses that took care of me that are now my Facebook friends, they're just like, you never complained when you could have complained. You should have complained. You always had a smile on your face. You encouraged us while you were going through. And that's the same thing I want to keep going, keep doing, even though I'm on the other side of it. You know what I'm saying? It's still a fight. I got to keep it healthy and everything like that. But, my desire is just to, make Mike proud, make you guys proud, you and Miss Carolyn, make you all proud that, and know that Mike lives on, a piece of him lives on through me.
That's awesome, man. I know my mom will love to hear this. She doesn't really see well anymore, but the fact that we recorded this visually as well would give her a chance to, see your smile and to just be able to have. It's just one of those. It's one more of those beautiful moments where you realize it's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I do think about divine plans, and I know God doesn't want us to suffer. A lot of people talk about God's will and all of these things, and I know his will is not for us to suffer. His will is not for us to be broken. His will is not for the world to be falling apart, but his will is for people. And
Right.
I love that you and I have connected that can never be torn from us.
Right.
And that somehow these amazing organs can continue on. I mean, it's just kind of mind-blowing to me that, certain organs are much better long-term responses than others, right? I mean, hearts don't necessarily last 100 years, but kidneys are unbelievable. Livers are the same. You can almost just keep pushing them forward. So there's a really beautiful pay it forward aspect that I'm not gonna lie, I think is fascinating. And like I said, I'm just so happy you're in my life, Rodney, because I would have never gained you had I not lost my brother. And I do miss my brother, and I'll always miss my brother the rest of my days, but I've gained you and I had him. So for me, I get two for the price of one.
Yeah.
In a weird way. You know,
Likewise, man. I feel the exact same way. My sentiments are the exact same. Like I said earlier, being nervous when I initially reached out, but you and your mom, your entire family have been nothing but welcoming and loving, and I can't wait till COVID lifts up a little bit more and we can do it in person.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We'll definitely make that happen. I'll have to probably get you up here because getting my mom to travel is a pain in the butt.
And I don't mind. I've been wanting to visit Washington for a long time, so I don't mind.
Yeah. So we'll make it happen, brother. But look, I'm gonna let you go. We could probably keep going forever and we'll
Yes.
kill everybody in the process. So much love to you and your family. God bless you. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you, sir.
And when you need help to take it to the next level, whether it's a YouTube channel or whatever you're doing to inspire others, please, don't stop and call out for help. Let me know. I'll also put it out on my social media. And if you have a web page you want to build, or if if you have a private email or something that you're building specifically for this, let me know. And I'll make sure I get it out there so we can create support groups for this because it is important.
Awesome. Will do.
All right, brother. God bless you, man. Be safe, man.
All right, take it easy.
Take care.